You are joining us in the Cranky Mule Tavern on planet Errata, which, as we all know, has been a center of intergalactic mining for the last couple of decades. So we thought that would be a great venue for a show all about economic games.
That's right, J-Mac, and I'd like to extend our thanks to the Errata Colony Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring our trip here. Remember, an investment in Smithore is an investment in our future. Also, space pirate attacks are down 28% from last year, so bring the kids.
Hey Joe, I think you've got a new friend.
Huh? Yeah.
Hey, Yoshi.
I'm in a long-term, serious relationship right now.
Oh, Joe, you know what they say, what happens on Errata stays on...
Don't.
Oh, okay. Before getting into the vagaries of intergalactic ore trading, let's talk about a more terrestrial economic simulation. Acquire is one of the most successful game designs by the late American designer Sid Sackson. Originally published in 1962 and coming in and out of print among various publishers since then, we're playing with a 1999 Hasbro edition here, it's a semi-abstract economic simulation that casts the players as independent investors, shrewdly purchasing stock in several rival corporations, and then doing their best to influence those companies' growth in ways that benefit the principal stockholders the most. Players take turns laying down tiles that represent the growth of several rival corporations across a board that represents the total market they're competing over. Unlike other tile games we've covered on the show, each tile can only go in exactly one place on the board, but each player holds a hand of 5 tiles, so they still have plenty of choice in their turn. They may then buy stock in those companies up to 3 shares per turn. A company's stock price varies depending upon its size, which is simply a function of how many tiles it occupies on the board. The title of the game doesn't refer to players acquiring stock. That's easy, everyone starts with plenty of cash to buy a lot early on, but the companies acquiring one another. These mergers and takeovers form the core events of the game. A merge happens whenever a player lays down a tile that connects 2 companies, at least one of which has to be 10 tiles or smaller in size. The larger company then acquires the smaller one, annexing all of its tiles into itself. The 2 players with the most stock in the company getting acquired score big cash bonuses, and then all players with stock in the acquired company can either liquidate their holdings for cash or trade. You can also choose to hold onto stock. If that company comes back into play later, you'll get a head start on it.
Yeah,
it's bad when you don't have money. Oh, is it bad when you don't have money?
The money thing is awful.
I think I don't care.
Yeah?
And I'm merging money anyway.
Oh my.
Nice. I've done that.
Oh, quantum disappears.
So
Nice.
Quantum disappears.
This is kind of exciting.
Wait, hold on.
So quantum's at 5.
Quantum's at 5.
So quantum's at 5. So the majority stakeholder gets 7,000.
It's involved in that. It's me.
Right?
American? No.
For
quantum. We're liquidating quantum.
Quantum's smaller.
Yeah,
Okay.
Your
right.
ship has come in.
Jeez.
Quantum's
I'm about to get just.
the minority gets 3,500, and that's you.
And I will certainly take some cash right now. Thank you.
And now,
Wait, and the 3 of us have.
and now we divvy up stock.
Earlier in the game, it tends to be a better idea to sell off your acquired stock because that's what gives you more working capital. Later on, however, when the acquiring companies are behemoths covering half the board, it's often a better idea to trade for shares of the bigger company, since that is a really cheap way of getting that blue chip stock. If you're wise enough to really load up with the smaller company, you might even land a majority stakeholder position with the acquiring company. As an illustration of how this works, let's watch the story of the Hydra Corporation. That's this orange one here, that got formed no fewer than 3 times over the course of this particular game. A new company incorporates, by the way, whenever a player lays a tile besides another that is all by itself on the board. Only 6 companies can be on the board at a time, but a company that vanishes due to a merger can still come back later if there's still room for it. Dennis ended up forming the 3rd Hydra of the game on this side of the board when it was just 1 tile away from acquisition from the enormous purple and blue companies. What happened next was not particularly surprising.
Welcome back, Hydra.
Take your share.
Free Hydra?
I'm buying Hydra as much as I can.
Come on over.
Grubby hands.
Hydra, it says 3 is 900.
So now you're splitting the. I should have bought a little more, I guess. Oh well.
I think because of the weird-ass distribution of the shares, I'm gonna buy 3 Hydras.
Jeez.
For only 600, which is
I know, it's a bag. Bag.
Yeah, I'm buying Hydra.
Yeah, it's not.
So 3 shares for 900.
Nice.
They're like
And-
Akamai or something.
And I am in everything.
Yes, the players enacted their own little dot-com bubble as they struggled to become a majority stakeholder in the startup before its inevitable absorption into Google or Yahoo over here, because they all wanted to get the most shares of the bigger company on the cheap. When Joe finally laid down the tile that connected it, the game came to an end, as it always does when a single corporation exceeds 40 tiles in size, or when none of the corporations left standing are small enough to be acquired. The players then calculate their respective net worth based on both cash and stock holdings, and the richest player wins.
I just made $24,000 off that company?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's pretty exciting.
Only at 38.9.
36.2.
Game was closer than I thought it was. I have 44.
I was in second? I thought there was no way that was going to happen.
As of 2007, the game is not currently being published by anyone, but copies of various older editions are available at reasonable prices on sites like eBay and BoardGameGeek.com. You can also find various unsanctioned digital versions out there. I've been told about an old text-based game called Hotel that was written for the Unix operating system back in the day. Rather less obscure is the website GetHostile.com, run by Attic Labs. The user interface is not anything to write home about, but it does indeed let you play for free a game remarkably similar to Acquire against automated opponents and other online humans. Personally, I think I like the online game a little better, since it keeps a running total of all the players' stock holdings and net worths, and generally moves a lot faster. So, Joe, I actually didn't play Acquire with y'all, but I have played it with you online some.
Yes.
And I was there when you all were playing it in the board game version. So how do you compare, like, say, the physical board game version versus the electronic version?
Well, for the first penetrating glimpse into the obvious, I would say it was a joy in the online version not to worry about so many bookkeeping details. I think there's a class of player out there that actually enjoys the sort of details of bean counting and seeing how many shares are out and things like that. But I actually prefer computers do that element of it and let me decide what needs to be bought and when. So I like the computer version. I can crank through a 3-player computer version 10 minutes.
Yeah. Do you play against real people, or is it just against the automated
I
players?
have played against real people, and just the Get Hostile version, the online version, works pretty well. But again, there's some vagaries of the interface that I think slow the game down. So when I play against computer opponents, it's really a very fast
The board game is awful pretty.
The board game is pretty, and I do like this, especially the 60s style design.
Yes.
It's very charming, but I would also, in a strange way, the obvious comparison is to something like Monopoly. And Monopoly is a lot more cartoony and a lot more the simple game. When you look at Acquire, the Acquire board, it is very abstract. It's a little
stark.
It's very stark. It's a little scary because it's in a Cartesian plane, and you have coordinates. And I think for younger players, that may be not very attractive. Great game. Obviously, a lot of it depends on sort of remembering what your opponents are doing. So that's an element to the board game. Taking advantage of the fact that bookkeeping is hard, it adds an element to the gameplay.
Do you think there's a psychological element to it, like figuring out what your opponents want to do and what companies they want to get in on? Yeah,
there's
they're called
absolutely
things like
psychological.
Hydra on the,
But in the board game, I mean, you're in for an hour of entertainment with 4 people, at least.
Yeah, it does seem to take an hour.
And unfortunately,
2
the
hours.
most fun happens in the last
the
last half
the
of
rest
the game.
of it is all build up. I
Yeah.
would say like the last quarter of the game almost. Or
Yeah.
Third.
And again, it's the whole thing of managing your money, because Very easy to get. You don't get money every turn, so you only get money when there's an acquisition. And from the time when you buy your last stock till you get an acquisition that brings you in money, can be a long stretch.
Do you think it's one of those games where you can get knocked out of play early on and have no chance of catching back up later?
It is. There's the random element of the tiles that you get. So if you are unlucky, you've built yourself into a corner where you have a lot of stock in small companies, but you don't have the connecting pieces for a merger. So now you're at the whim of luck to get those pieces, or somebody else is going to make the merger.
But you can buy stock in any company.
You can buy stock in any company, but I think you'll find that you can get in a position where you play strategic investments. You could get this, where you play strategic investments where you don't have the connecting pieces to make the merger happen when you need it to happen. If you're relying on somebody else making that merger for you, you might be in for a very long wait. I have to go to the little humanoids room.
Why don't you go do that then, and I'll talk about the game that brought us here. Mule was designed by Danny Bunton and published in 1983 for the Atari and Commodore computers by a cocky upstart software company named Electronic Arts. A few years later, a Nintendo version was published, but as far as I know, there have been no official re-releases for it since then. And that's a shame, because it's a great multiplayer game that still holds up today, murky 8-bit graphics and all. Mule is essentially a board game and a concrete simulation of a tiny, self-contained supply and demand economy on an alien world. Each of the 4 players is an interplanetary colonist trying to turn a profit by mining the planet Errata, yeah, you see what they did there, Errata for a valuable mineral called smith ore. The standard game takes place over 12 turns, the winner being the one who built up the most wealth when the time runs out. As the game progresses, each player acquires plots of land surrounding a little city, and then decides on each turn how to best exploit that land. The ultimate goal is to extract as much smith ore as you can, but in order to do that successfully, you have to support your operations by having access to enough food to feed your workers and energy to power your machines. You can make this food and energy yourself by dedicating some of your land to their production, or you can trade with other players for them. Early in the game, while there's still plenty of vacant plots on the screen, the game literally gives away land through land grants. It moves a cursor across each of the empty plots, handing it over to the first player who hits their joystick button, with 1 per customer. After that, there's sometimes an auction phase for additional plots, where players use Mule's most excellent auction interface to try to outbid each other. You name your price by using your joystick to push your little dude up and down. So if you're a big meanie, and you should be, even if you don't want to buy the land, you can force your opponent, who is desperate to have it, to pay more by driving the price way up and then backing down at the last second. That's great, I love that. Never let anyone buy land for cheap. Phase 2 is called the exploitation phase. Going in order from richest to poorest, each player gets a chance to run around the map, configuring their land to produce various things. You do this by purchasing a mule in the town, that's supposed to be an ornery robotic work animal, and outfitting it for either mining, farming, or energy production. You then lead it over to a plot of land and install it there. There are 3 terrain types, each good with a certain kind of production. Mining works best in the mountains, for example, while farming is best done in the river, that's that brownish thing running down the middle of the map. However, you can boost production anywhere by having 2 neighboring plots doing the same thing, and over time, your plots will get better at whatever it is they're doing. Random events often occur prior to each player's turn, represented by scrolling text messages informing them of some boon or disaster that just befell them. The game uses what we game wonks call negative feedback. The players in the lead tend to get rotten random events that result in the loss of money, resources, or even land. Players lagging behind usually have good things happen, not enough to upset the balance, just enough to keep everyone in the running and having fun. After everyone goes, there's a production phase where all the plots sprout happy little dots representing fresh resources, and then there's a chance of more random events, this time which can affect everyone. Sunspots might boost energy production, while a pirate raid will result in everyone losing all the smith ore they just mined. There's also meteor strikes, and acid rain, and space locust attacks, and I don't know what all. Finally, there's an auction phase where players get a chance to buy and sell their resources, either trading with each other or making sales and purchases with the town store. Again, this interface is great. At the start of each auction, buyers align themselves at the bottom of the screen and walk up to represent what they're willing to pay, Sellers are at the top and walk down in order to lower their asking price. If two players manage to literally meet in the middle, a transaction takes place. If you're playing against humans, this is where you can have fun, taunting your friends by raising your asking price by a step every time they come towards you. As a friend of mine noted, this is the economic version of taunting your little brother by rolling the car forward a foot every time he reaches for the door handle. More importantly, this is where you can try to influence the price of resources on future turns. If you're the only player producing energy, for example, and you choose not to sell any, then the base price will go up due to scarcity. You can then make a killing parceling it out to energy-desperate players in a future turn. You have to be careful about those shortages, though. If there's a colony-wide smith ore shortage going on, then mules become more expensive, and if the colony is low on food or energy, then players' turns become shorter. Mule requires 4 players who all gather around the computer to play. This game predates network play, you see. The computer provides bots to fill in where needed, so it's possible to play with 2 or 3 people, or even solo. Playing this game on a modern computer requires an emulator, but that's not terribly difficult to come by. The footage you've been watching this whole time was from an Atari emulator running on my McIntosh. You can find links to some emulators as well as the game itself on this show's website, gameshelf.jmac.org. There is also a modern mule-inspired shareware game for Windows called Space Horse, published by Gilly Games, and that offers a free demo.
Ooh, you know, I don't think the facilities are really designed for resolutions higher than 8-bit, because when I was pulling...
Let's not talk about that, and let's talk about the game instead.
Okay.
What are your feelings on this game, Joe?
Again, as you probably noted many, many times, the game holds up very well 20 years later.
It really does.
The gameplay. This comes from an era when gameplay trumped graphics, obviously, and it's quite fun.
Mm-hmm.
Recommended, even today.
I understand you've been playing it a lot on a Nintendo emulator, actually, lately.
I have, yeah. So obviously, Mule was ported to a bunch of different platforms. And essentially, as far as I can tell, the different platforms just added better graphics and fancier music.
Right, they went all the way up from Atari 800 graphics to Nintendo Entertainment System graphics.
Well,
did the game survive that leap of technology?
It did, except I mean, you get more fluffery, and Mule's a game, I think, in the 8-bit, the Atari 800 version. It's a tight enough game. You've got 12 turns, so. It's already sort of taxing. It takes maybe 20 minutes to play with 2 players.
Yeah, well, about a half an hour, I'd say.
All right, about a half an hour. So if you add fluffy graphics in there and sort of cute cutscenes, I don't know what that adds to the game.
Oh, they put cutscenes in it?
Yeah, there's more.
Wow, it's cinematic.
So yeah, it's but again, so there's what's interesting about Mule is the arcade-like elements to it. The fact that the plot, the land grab section where it really does depend on hitting your trigger button fast enough, is sort of irritating.
It's a little weak. I've missed out on the thing because I wanted the plot in like the lower right corner, but the cursor only moves in this pattern, and if you miss it, then you don't get anything. You get nothing. You
get nothing, and for those of us that grew up on more turn-based games, that can be a little jarring. And the whole, you have a limited time to go and outfit your mule and put them on the correct settlement, the little house on your plot. And if time is ticking down, it's hard enough to hit that fairly large target of the house.
Yeah, but you never actually really have a problem. So long as you have enough food and energy, you don't really have a problem running out of time.
Well, I know. So one of the games I was playing, I had three plots to do at a turn, even though I was full up on food and energy.
Well, you only have so long to tend your plots. So I don't think that the time thing was so harsh, but the timing thing of the button pressing and making sure you're exactly in the right spot or the mule runs away, that's a bit much. That wouldn't transfer so well to a modern electronic game.
But again, the overall game, I mean, this is a nit, and I have to say the sheer joy of getting back to introducing these arcade elements is something I almost wish modern games would take advantage of. In some strange way, I feel like modern games are a little bit too much like desktop applications rather than arcade games. So.
A little more Pac-Man, a little less Sid Meier's Civilization.
A little less Microsoft Word, yeah.
Or that.
Yes.
Fair enough. And now, some game news. You may recall our review a couple of episodes ago of Carcassonne, a tile placement game where players take turns building a map of a medieval landscape. Our friend, Julia Tenney, followed up her appearance on that show by baking and decorating an entire Carcassonne set out of iced gingerbread. I was fortunate enough to play a couple games with friends before the tiles got too manky to eat. And then we ate them. You can view all the photographs yourself on my Flickr gallery, which I'll link to from this episode's show notes. In another past episode, we covered Days of Wonder's Memoir 44, a lightweight, card-driven tactical war game themed around the liberation of France in World War II. Since we aired that show, the game has proven such a success for its publisher that they've released several expansions, including a Eastern Front and Pacific Theater sets, as well as a brand new Air Pack expansion, which comes with adorable little plastic fighter planes and new rules that let you add them to the main game. Since the last episode, I have picked up a Wii! Everyone knows about playing tennis and such with its motion-sensitive controller, but less well-known is its so-called virtual console, which allows you to purchase and download video games for older consoles and then play them on the Wii. We at the Gameshelf salute all efforts to bring older digital games back into circulation and hope to feature Wii-friendly games in future episodes. In other digital troublemaking news, Checkers has been solved. In July, computer scientists in Canada's University of Alberta announced that a computer program named Chinook was running a checkers playing algorithm that plays a perfect game, meaning that it has been mathematically proven to never lose. If you don't believe it, you can visit its website and challenge it to a game yourself. No matter how good you are, the best you'll be able to do is force it to a draw. That website also has some interesting links about other games which have been mathematically solved, though so far, Checkers is the most complex of these. The first Ice House game design competition in a couple of years happened this summer, and we'd like to extend our congratulations to the winner, Somerville's own Doug Orlins, who incidentally loaned us his copy of Acquire to feature on this show. The competition challenges game designers to create games using Ice House pieces, those colored plastic pyramids published by Looney Labs, which you might recall seeing in our review of Gnostica a while ago. Doug describes Pylon as a two-player abstract strategy game of placement and stacking. You can find the rules online at icehousegames.org, which we will link to in this episode's show notes. As a final item, I'd like to introduce... Uh-oh, sounds like another space pirate attack. Unfortunately, not an uncommon occurrence here on planet Errata.
Oh, way to go, J-Mac. You just called our sponsors liars.
Well, I didn't exactly,
Uh-oh. It looks like they're jamming our signal.
Oh no, it is an Urquan from the classic game Star Control 2, which we covered in episode 2 of the Game Shelf.
Hey there, I'm Scott Nicholson, host of Board Games with Scott, and I'm here to briefly introduce you to a game called Indonesia. Indonesia is a longer game. It takes 3 to 5 hours, and it's a game about producing goods and shipping goods. It's a logistics and economic game, and I'll talk a little bit about the major components here. Now, we've got a game already in play. It's what I'm showing you here. These stones represent cities. These are 2 cities on the board. The boats represent a shipping company, so there's one shipping company here made up of these 2 boats, and a shipping company here made up of these 2 boats. The small tiles, each one of these represents a different production company. So these 2 are rice production companies. This one over here is a spice production company. Now each city during the operations phase can receive goods from the production companies. The blue cities, which are a level 1 city, can receive one type of good, of each good that's on the board during the phase. Now in order to deliver a good to a city, you must use boats. So what will happen is the person who owns this company here, even if they want to deliver that rice to this city, they must use a boat to do it. You can't just send it next door. So this person would use this boat to deliver a good to this city. The way it works is when you deliver a good, you mark that that city has received a good by using the back side of these tokens. That indicates that that city has received 1 rice, can't receive any more rice this turn. And then what will happen is this person will get a payment of $20, but they have to pay the owner of the boat $5. If I started here, I would have to use all blue boats to get to a city. I could not change over to red boats halfway through. I have to use all one-color boats for each shipment. So I might send this spice and send it via this boat and then via this boat to this city. And again, I take a marker to indicate that that city has received spice. Now, I don't lose these markers. They stay there on the board. This just represents my capacity. And so each land space can hold one of these little chits. And so your companies will grow as the game goes on. The spices are worth 25. So if we're shipping that one spice to here, this player will get 25, but has to pay 10 to the owner of this boat line. Now, here's where if another player is set up over on this side and uses this player's boats to ship to a different city, this player gets paid off again. Mergers and acquisitions are how these companies combine. So, for example, these two rice companies could be merged, in which case they would be considered to be one big production company, and you could end up putting a little rice marker there. If these two were merged together, it would be one big group. You can also merge shipping companies, in which case you could merge these two shipping companies together. So one player will announce a merger. They'll say, we're going to merge these two transportation companies. What you do is you count up the number of boats that are in a shipping company. So that's 5 of those. Each one's a base of 10. Again, that reference sheet tells you that. So the bidding for this is going to start at 50. And it's going to go up in increments of 5 because there are 5 boats involved. So you'll go around the board. People will continue to raise the bid or pass. The winner controls now all of this shipping. And it could be someone that didn't have either of these companies to start out with. So you may do a really good job building up your company, but then someone else buys it out from under you. So it's something to watch out for. If you're worried about that, then you need to always make sure you have some cash on hand so you're able to bid to protect the company that you've built up. Otherwise, you might find someone buys that company from you, and you'll get a pile of cash. The reason why all the bids have to be made in 5-unit intervals in this case is so that you're able to equally split up the money appropriately. The person who controlled this line will end up getting 3/5 of the final bid, and the person who controlled this line, because there were 2 boats in it, will end up getting 2/5 of the final bid. Also, during each turn of the game, you can improve your company through research and development. You can improve your standing in turn order, improve your shipping efficiency, become a better producer, or take control of mergers and acquisitions. This allows your company to become customized to the way you're playing the game. So that's Indonesia. You're either producing or shipping or a little of both. You're controlling mergers and acquisitions, buying out other companies, or having yours bought out from underneath you. It's actually a very exciting game, even though it takes a while to play. It keeps you engaged throughout the game, and I enjoy this game a lot. To learn more about this, head over to Board Games with Scott and look at episode 10, which is all about Indonesia. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, looks like our signal's back. Well, that was interesting. Who knew space pirates were into 9-hour Euro games about the age of sail?
Space travel is very long and uneventful. Is it another space pirate attack?
No, Joe. It's closing time. Finish your Jovian sunspot.
It's Tranya.
Okay, finish your Tranya, and we're going to have to be going. Be sure to join us at our website at gameshelf.jmag.org, where you can subscribe to our podcast, watch past episodes, and leave us feedback. We love to hear from you. Join us next time, where we will be bringing you games a little closer to home. Cheers! I thought it was a Jovian sunspot.
No, that's green. It has little lemon.
It has little lemon. How many of these have you had tonight?
More than many.